We're going to talk about the two best programs in college football, Alabama and Clemson, both with several national championships the past few years, and both schools have kind of become quarterback university, have become QBU as their previous two quarterbacks have been drafted in the first round, both Clemson and both Alabama. And I want to talk about each quarterback room because they are having to replace a first round draft pick this year, with Trevor Lawrence, of course, being the first overall pick, and then Mac Jones being taken later in the first round to the Patriots. So each school has a lot to replace, but each school, as usual, has a very talented young quarterback coming in to replace that quarterback. So we're going to talk about both quarterback rooms and kind of decide what quarterback room you'd rather have for 2021 and what quarterback you'd rather go with. Again, there's no wrong or right answer. If his history repeats itself, both of these guys will probably be first round picks in a few years. But before we talk about the quarterback comparisons and quarterback rooms, I just want to encourage you to consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. If you like any quarterback related content, it can be just like fun quarterback talk like this right here, or it can be quarterback film breakdowns, which we do. The majority of our content is quarterback film breakdowns and kind of going through each quarterback. But any quarterback related content is fair game. So let's dive into it now. Let's talk about the Alabama quarterback room and what they are replacing. They've had two first-round draft picks taken the past few years, with, of course, Tua and then Mac Jones this year. If you want to count Jalen Hurts being a second-round pick, I think that's fair to say as well, since they were all in the quarterback room. So Alabama has certainly become QB and wide receiver U and running back U and whatever U. They're the best in college football. We all know that. But the quarterback position has really taken off for Alabama over the past several years. And so now they're looking to replace those talented quarterbacks who made up, let's see how many Mac Jones and Tua had over 143 passing touchdowns combined. That's a lot of touchdowns and a lot of the stats to replace. But they have quarterback Bryce Young coming in, who was a true freshman last year. Of course, everyone knows he's going to be taking over. He had one passing touchdown last year, so not a ton of experience yet, just kind of sitting and watching, but a very talented high school recruit, of course, a five-star guy. He reminds me a lot of Russell Wilson, and we actually put a film breakdown of Bryce Young a few months ago. And then we put another film breakdown from the spring game that showed his ability as a quarterback. So if you want kind of a more in-depth or more detailed dive, I encourage you to go check that video out because it kind of goes to what makes him a good quarterback. But just if you want to be real broad about it, he's very elusive in the pocket and out of the pocket, can make off-platform throws just as good as he can make rhythm throws or normal throws within the pocket where he doesn't have to move. So he can use his legs to beat you. But each time he scrambles, he's looking to pass, which tends to lead to a bigger play if you're watching his high school film, or if you're even watching the film from the spring game. So Bryce Young, so not a ton of experience, and they're losing experience around him from the receiver position and from the running back position. But as always, they got a bunch of talented receivers still coming up and developing, so I don't expect a drop off by any means. If it is, it shouldn't be that big of one, but he's most likely going to be a first round pick down the road. So you got Bryce Young for Alabama, again replacing a lot of quality quarterbacks in the past few years, but he is the next guy up. So let's move on to the Clemson quarterback room because they are replacing Trevor Lawrence, who had to replace Deshaun Watson, of course, who had Kelly Bryant in the middle for about 4 games before he opted out and then transferred. But you've got 2 first-round picks. And then before even Deshaun Watson, we had Tajah Boyd, who was a 6th-round pick, but he's actually the leader in Clemson history for passing yards, passing touchdowns. He's even tied with Deshaun Watson for rushing touchdowns for the quarterback position. So if you go all the way back from Tajah Boyd, they've had NFL-drafted quarterbacks. And so now we have, I'm not going to pronounce the last name because I'm going to butcher it, but now you have DJ U. I'll call him DJ U, taking over. But let's look at the stats real quick that they're going to have to replace because we had Watson and Lawrence, the previous 2 quarterbacks, both with 90 passing touchdowns. Lawrence had 18 rushing touchdowns, and Watson, like I mentioned earlier, had 26 rushing touchdowns. So a lot of stats to replace and just a lot of production to replace. But DJ U's up for the task. We saw that he has more experience playing time-wise than Bryce Young. Started 2 games last year, and Trevor Lawrence was sidelined due to the COVID protocols. There was the Boston College game. They won 34-28, and then it was the Notre Dame game. They lost in double overtime, 47-40, but hell of a game. Let's read these numbers real quick from DJ U. Again, this is only 2 games starting as a true freshman last year. Against Notre Dame, where they lost in 2 overtimes, he was 29-44, 439 yards passing, 2 passing touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown. Boston College, which they won 34-28. 30 of 41, 342 yards passing, had 25 yards rushing, and he had 2 passing touchdowns and 1 rushing touchdown. So he had 9 total touchdowns last year, and 6 of those touchdowns came in the 2 starts he had. 0 interceptions, so the team was in the game the whole time. Big dude, big time arm, can stand in the pocket and absolutely just rip it. Not going to be as elusive or as kind of quick as Bryce Young is, but at the same time can still use his legs and run, which he showed. If you design a run for him, he can put his head down and pick up some extra yards. Like Clemson used with Trevor Lawrence in some big games, they use Lawrence more as a runner than the smaller games, if you will. I expect them to use DJ U as well. 6'4", 250, so a big guy. Built a lot different than Bryce Young. Bryce Young more that 6 foot, maybe 200-ish or so. Again, kind of like a Russell Wilson style stature, but again, big arm, different style of quarterback than Bryce Young, but super talented. He showed last year that he's going to be probably another first-round pick for Clemson here in a few years. But again, both these guys, very talented, different, but similar in the fact they're taking over for a former first-round or a first-round pick, and that both of these schools have been the top of college football the past few years. So I want to hear from y'all. Who would y'all prefer to have? Who do you think is going to end up being a better quarterback? Again, there's no right or wrong answer here. Both guys are studs. As far as like the quarterback room goes, I don't know all the depth behind Clemson, but I know Alabama's got some dudes. Paul Tyson, and then of course Jalen Milroe, who I think is an absolute stud from Texas. He's going to be a true freshman quarterback, big time recruit, dynamic with his legs, and can also chunk it with his arm as well. Very good quarterback overall. So I think the Alabama quarterback room is in a very good place. If I'm just taking a quarterback for this year, just based on what we saw last year, it might be DJ U from Clemson, just because he had that experience and he balled out and was already probably one of the best quarterbacks in college football last year, just being a backup to Trevor Lawrence. So I think going into this year is probably DJ U, who you would lean towards as far as what quarterback you would take. If you're taking the overall quarterback room, maybe it's Alabama. But again, there's no right or wrong answer. I think both guys starting now are probably going to be first-round picks and probably lead. One of these two schools are probably going to win national championships the next few years. I know. That's probably a safe bet. But again, stud guys, I want to hear from you. Who would you really take? Why do you think they're different? And what situation would you feel more comfortable in for these guys? And that is all we have on Alabama and Clemson. Again, 2 talented quarterbacks with a bright future. We want to hear from you. And we'll see you next time on our next quarterback-related video.